Good Friday, and that was This Is the Day by The Verb, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I'm joined now by the artist behind that song. In blunt and simple terms, he made one of the best albums of the 80s. Soul Mining remains, for me and for many, a masterpiece. His most recent work has been soundtracking his brother Gerard's new film, Hyena, and last month he curated a season of film screenings as part of Bristol's 2015 Folk Noir-themed Filmic Festival. My guest this afternoon is Matt Johnson. Matt, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and a happy Easter to you and all your listeners.
And to you too, Matt. Does it still feel good hearing that?
Yeah, it was nice, actually, and I was a very young man when I wrote that. I was only about 20 years old or something, but yeah, my life did change after that. It's an optimistic song. It's a hopeful song, so that's a nice thing that it's still listened to by so many people after all these years.
Hopeful wasn't always the case with what you wrote back then, was it?
Well, let's just say on a political level, I'm a realist, and there's, you know, we probably don't have time to go into global geopolitics today, but on a personal level, I'm actually quite an optimistic person. So there's that dichotomy, I suppose, within myself. So I'm an easygoing, fun guy in person, as my friends know. But yeah, I do like to dive in at the deep end in terms of geopolitics.
We'll go back in time perhaps in a while, but for now, congratulations on the plaudits and awards for Hyena.
Yeah, thank you. It's been going very, very well.
It's a brutal film, Matt, and incredibly graphic at times too. In short, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a hard-hitting, corrupt cop thriller. Is that about right, Matt?
It is, and it's my younger brother Gerard's second feature film. I also scored his film Tony, which was his debut feature film, and he did a huge amount of research for this film, both within elements within the police, let's say ex-policemen that were probably slightly the wrong side of the law. He also worked with young women that had been sex trafficked, and so he got some very heartbreaking stories from them. Plus also, through his own contacts, he knew members of, let's say, the Albanian underworld. And what's interesting is that he had to tone down a lot of the stories, and the research revealed some terrible, shocking stories, and he actually had to tone a lot of things down. So it's all based on true stories. Obviously, he's merged various characters to protect identities, but it's all based on truth, what's happening around us today.
The lead role played by your cousin, too.
Yeah, well, we like to keep it close in our family. We're a big old East End family, and a very creative family, and Peter Ferdinando, he's a similar age to Gerard, actually. He's a very, very talented actor, Peter, and he's been acting since he was a little boy. Doing very, very well at the moment, and I think he's been in a couple of Ben Wheatley films as well as a couple of Gerard's films, and things are... I think he was also in Doctor Who. He played the villain in the first, the new Doctor Who, Peter Capaldi, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I think Peter played the main villain at the launch of the new series, so he's doing very well.
And I think he deserves an award for his part in this particular film, in Hyena. So Gerard wrote and directed it, and you did the music, which plays a huge part in the film, in the way that the story ebbs and flows. I'm fascinated by how composers write film music. Where did you start with this?
Because obviously Gerard and I are very close, we share similar aesthetic sensibilities in terms of film and music. He gets me involved at a very early stage, so as he's writing the script, he's sending me bits and pieces across, and also we get together in my studio to create what I call a sound palette, and he will have some suggestions in terms of, look, I'd like this to be quite synthesizer driven, for instance, on this film. And luckily for him, I have a huge amount of I'm what's known as a hoarder. I have huge amounts of stuff in various lock-up garages all over the place. It's a bit of an illness, I suppose, being a hoarder. So one of my lockups was filled with lots of old 1980s keyboards, synthesizers, foot pedals. So I retrieved them from storage and used a lot of those for the soundtrack. So you would hear certain, let's say, sonic imperfections throughout parts of it. But it's a very diverse soundtrack because there's some very melodic songs. I think one of the ones that we'll be playing later in the show is probably the most melodic song on it, but there's also some very very extreme, very noise driven songs. Some of them use just for instance a Moog synthesizer with an Eastern voice. Other ones use more rhythmic based, but it's very diverse. And And so through working through the film process with him, it would be choosing, as I said, a sound palette. I'd like to have a limited amount of sounds. I like to work 16 track these days. I like to keep strict parameters because I think that stimulates creativity, because there is a problem these days with digital technology. There's so many options available, and it's what's known as option paralysis, that you just cannot make a decision. And so I like to make decisions earlier on. I find that a stimulus to the creative process to limit options. And as he's filming, he would then send across the dailies and the scenes, and I start composing to those, and then he'll come round and we'll finesse and we'll take it from there.
That seems like the best way of doing it, because of course composing for films means that you're often composing against the clock, aren't you? And so the film's got the last part of the film to be added.
Yeah, it's very true. In fact, it's still underrated for some reason. The directors don't, but I think producers or the finances of the films, it tends to be an afterthought, and it's such an integral part of a film. I think even the great John Barry once said that it's always, we want it yesterday. Oh, and the budget's all used up. That's a story for everyone.
Soundtracks have always been important to you, haven't they? I'm going to play a taste now of some of your favourite film music, and we'll talk about why you're so in love with these particular tracks in a moment.
Yeah.
The choices of my guests this afternoon: Matt Johnson, some Mancini, Shostakovich and Herman there, Matt.
Yeah.
Touch of Evil, Eyes Wide Shut and Taxi Driver.
Yeah. Bernard Herrmann. And Taxi Driver was the last film that Bernard Herrmann composed, but his first film was Citizen Kane. What amazing bookends to a fabulous career.
And why did you pick the Shostakovich?
Well, that's from, that was Stanley Kubrick's last film, and I love Stanley Kubrick's choice in music throughout his films, really. I think he chose beautifully. But of course, interestingly, a lot of the music that he used wasn't composed specifically for his films, but he just chose beautifully. But with the Mancini, that was another Orson Welles film there, Touch of Evil, which is one of my favourite films. But how I first got interested in film music, well, I suppose as a little boy, we mentioned Doctor Who earlier on, but I didn't know a lot of these composers that composed television theme tunes, but I loved theme tunes. For instance, Doctor Who was Ron Grainer, who also composed things like The Prisoner, Steptoe and Son, Tales of the Unexpected, films like To Sir with Love and A Kind of Loving, but also Laurie Johnson, no relation to me, of course, but he composed The Avengers, Thriller, Animal Magic, also Doctor Strangelove, another Stanley Kubrick film. But at the age of 15, I was fortunate enough to start my first job, which was at a music publisher called DeWolf Music, which is a wonderful family-run music publisher. It's one of the biggest in the world, or the biggest family-owned music publishers, and they were really the pioneers of what's now known as library music. They were founded in 1909 by Mayer DeWolf, and their roll call includes some of the UK's leading composers, including Jack Tromby, Johnny Hawksworth, Tim Suster, Ivan Novello, Stefan Grappelli, and countless others.
So it was actually soundtracks that from a very early age were inspiring you.
Yeah, that's right. And working as a little boy at 15 in Soho, witnessing these amazing sessions, recording sessions going on, all these incredible people. So it was from an interest from a very young age as a little boy watching television, and also being fortunate to actually work in that industry. And so, although obviously with I went off on a certain tangent, there's always something that I wanted to do, and so I formed my own record company several years ago called Cineola, and that's when I started to take it a bit more seriously, and I composed a lot of Scandinavian documentary and art films, some Turkish and Lebanese films, as well as working with my brother Gerard and other directors.
And so to Hyena, then, the most recent film that you scored. Yeah. I'm going to play a track from the soundtrack now. Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven. Will you put this in context, Matt, please?
This is actually the closing credits, and we wanted something that was slightly more, let's say, that gave hope. The film has without giving anything away, has a very intense ending. And we wanted, as the credits rolled, for people to leave the cinema actually feeling a bit of hope, not too traumatised, should we say.
More with Matt Johnson after this. That's off the soundtrack to Hyena, a track called Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven But Nobody Wants to Die, and the closing track from the film, and off the soundtrack. Matt Johnson is my guest this afternoon. That's his piece of work there. Matt Johnson, the musician, producer and soundtrack composer. Matt, that's credited as being by The. So The is still going, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. And we're all thinking about, in discussions about possibly a new song-based album and possibly some shows. It's a little bit further down the line because I'm working on another film at the moment, a political documentary, as well as finishing up some other bits and pieces. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on.
That comes as big news. You casually drop that into the conversation.
Yeah,
one of the most frequent questions I get asked by Six Music listeners whenever I play a The track, which is often, there is always the question, will there be new The music? So that is The in your current guise as a soundtrack composer.
Yes.
But you're saying that you may return to pop.
Well, I'm starting to get the urge again. There's a lot of things to write about the current world situation, as well as, and also it's interesting coming back as an older guy. I sort of retired in 2002. I wanted to do other things with my life. I've lived in different countries. I was living in New York for a long time, and then Sweden and Spain, and I just like to do different things, and I didn't really want to be just pigeonholed as a singer-songwriter, and so I've started a book publishing company and a film soundtrack company. But also, I think there's a lot to say now, and you've got to really... I just can't go through the motions, you know. I really needed to feel I've got something new to say. And
the natural progression then from where you were in the 80s to now is the sound that we've just heard there, and the scores to films. But you think that the world today needs writing about?
I think so. I mean, I'm geopolitics has always been one of my passions, but it's you've got to find the balance between you know, hopefully inspiring people, not preaching at people, because people don't want to be told what to think. But I also think that the world we're living in today, there's so much massive manipulation by the media, and people are manipulated into voting against their own interests and flooded with disinformation. You know, it's frightening times. You know, we're drifting into potentially a world war based on lies and misinformation, and what little you can do as a singer or a songwriter or an artist or anybody, I think now's the time for people to stand up and to start to really draw attention to the misinformation.
Do you have any yearning to get back on stage?
Funny you should say that. I was on a flight yesterday, just coming back from Spain, and I didn't have anything to listen to, and I started to listen to... I very rarely listen to my own stuff, to be honest, but I started to listen to some bits and pieces, and I started to get quite inspired about getting back on stage again. Yeah, I think
so. Might
it'd be
this
good.
be, Matt? Because everyone is now thinking, "Wow."
Oh, it wouldn't be this year, but possibly next year. I've got to write some new things, have some new things to say. But I get a lot of offers all the time, which I tend to turn down. Actually, I am making an appearance at the Number 6 Festival this year, but this is with Gerard as a Q&A. We are talking about films, but if anybody doesn't, you know, Number 6 Festival, not to do with Radio 6, by the way, but it's at Portmeirion, which is a beautiful little... Have you been to Portmeirion, Chris?
I have, yes.
Isn't it
it's
fantastic?
Famously where The Prisoner was filmed.
That's right. I actually stayed once a few years ago in the Green Dome. My girlfriend brought me a birthday treat there, and it was wonderful, which was Number 2's headquarters in The Prisoner. But, yeah, so there's going to be a thing there. But in terms of live performance, it will be possibly, 2016 if things go to plan.
And that would be to accompany a new record.
That's the plan. I've got to write it first, though. Some people said I've already been recording it, but I've not started writing it. I've just started to write it. Chris, can I ask you a personal question?
Yes, yes, but remembering that we are on air.
Is it true that you don't like fruit and vegetable juices?
Yes, it is, Matt.
So is it a personal choice or an allergy? Or?
It's like a phobia.
Really? I'm fascinated by this, because I do a lot of juicing myself, but...
Oh, you do? That's something I never do. I am trying to get over it, but now at nearly 40, it's ridiculous.
But it's not an allergy. You don't come over unwell. You just don't like the look of vegetables.
No, but some fruit and vegetables do make me want to vomit.
Do they? Which ones?
Absolutely. They bring on that kind of sensation.
Any ones in particular?
Tomatoes.
Really? What about plums? Do you like plums?
No, I don't. No, this is what wasn't what I was expecting to be talking to you about this afternoon. But as you've asked, only peas is the straight answer.
Only peas? Oh my goodness! So you eat a lot of bread and cereals and meat?
Yeah, a lot of very unhealthy food topped up with vitamins.
Okay. So your wife must nag you about eating your fruit and veg.
She despairs, not nags.
Yeah.
She tries to hide it.
Juicing is the way to go for you, Chris.
All right, there's good advice for life, I think. The one and only Matt Johnson. It has been an absolute joy, a pleasure. Thanks for being so honest this afternoon too.
Thanks for inviting me on, Chris.
Congratulations to you and to your brother Gerard on Hyena.
Thank you.
That's the new film. It's out now, and Matt Johnson. I'm going to play some Midnight Cowboy, and this is because you've asked me to play it. Why?
Well, I love John Barry's theme tunes, but this one, that film as well, Midnight Cowboy, was very made a big impression on me when I was a young man, and probably one of the reasons why I moved to New York, I suppose, later on, because that really captured certain films of the 1960s really started to capture the dark side of America. You know, you had films like Midnight Cowboy, obviously films like Taxi Driver later in the decade. And it revealed something about the American dream or the American nightmare, which I found very alluring. Interestingly, the Fred Neil song "Everybody's Talking" performed by Harry Nilsson is a very famous song connected with Midnight Cowboy. But did you also know that "Lay Lady Lay" by Bob Dylan was written for that film, but it wasn't delivered in time, so that's why they went with the Harry Nilsson version of "Everybody's Talking." But the main theme tune with Toots Thielemans, I think, is on harmonica, and apparently John Barry didn't really want the harmonica on it, but the harmonica makes it. I think this is the most beautiful, uplifting, life-affirming piece of music. But taken in context of the darkness of the film, for anybody that hasn't seen it, they should go and see it. It's a very, very powerful, moving film about America at that particular period of time.
Matt, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Matt Johnson on Six Music.